Let's talk about locust invasion. The desert locusts came, first wave went, appear to have been dealt with, then a second wave, and now we've also been warned and cautioned that there is a wave that is spreading around the country. What is the latest that we know about this?
Right, so we were told that with the changing weather patterns that we would expect more locusts to come back into the country with that cycle that we had seen before, where it's thought that it would have been dealt with. Those counties that suffered it before, from Isiolo to Wajir to Mandera, would suffer the same again. And we're looking at then high impact when it comes to the clearance of vegetation. And so the problem that we thought had gone away is coming back. And then as the cycle of life continues for these locusts, we're going to see another attack. And that was an early warning that was given about a month ago. In terms of what has been done about it, that's a totally different story. But that problem is still not gone yet.
Not gone.
No.
Various organizations have come together and being spearheaded by the government as well in terms of addressing this. We have seen clips and footage of aerial spraying of the desert locusts. We've seen footage of officers on the ground who are trying to deal with this, from even the private sector. The World Bank has also lent its support in this through several programs. The UN FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, ECPE, and other organizations have come together to try and address this issue. So locusts coming in from, up north, and then crossing into Somalia, crossing into Kenya, and then threatening to go into other parts of the region. Some are even being said that they could even cross over into TZ, into Uganda, into South Sudan, and into Ethiopia as well, from Ethiopia or coming into the country. So let's have a conversation now with the Assistant FAO representative in charge of programs. His name is Hamisi Williams, and he joins us on the line. Hamisi is here to let us understand what's happening and what the FAO, because it deals with food and agriculture. This is something that is big. When you see the desert locust infestation in the country or in the region, there is an impact that it's going to have on food security. So let's just start with that. Hamisi, thank you very much for joining us, and good morning.
Good morning, Eric and the team. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room, Hamisi. Let's just get straight down into it. What is the current state of affairs in terms of this desert locust infestation, not just in the country, but in the region?
Yeah, thank you. I heard that you already did some very nice summary over there. You do some reading, which is good. But let me say that you rightfully put it that for Kenya specifically, this is a second wave, meaning the first wave came in and we dealt with it. But a quick fact that what we are looking at in Kenya from 2019, December 28th to be specific, was what we call an upsurge. It's not a plague, it's an upsurge. We are seeing intensive kind of invasion. This is what came in, and we dealt with it at that time. A lot of activity for the entire 2020. During the pandemic, we were really in the field doing a lot of work there. So FAO was supporting the government, and for Kenya in particular, we were able to really clear locusts out of Kenyan fields. But immediately when we did our forecast as FAO, which has the mandate of forecasting on locusts and supporting government to deal with locusts, we were looking at the entire region, Horn of Africa. We saw a situation. One is that Yemen, which seems to be a gateway to the Horn of Africa, really didn't do a good job there because there are some conflicts in the region, in that particular country. So instead of concentrating on matters desert locusts, which can threaten their food security, I think this was not given a lot of attention. So we got a lot of breeding that happened there. And immediately winds started coming to the Horn of Africa. Then desert locust, being a migratory pest, was easily able to fly across the Red Sea, find itself in the Horn of Africa. The same situation, unfortunately, happened in Ethiopia. You're aware Ethiopia has been having some kind of not stable conditions in some of the fields.
Yep.
this really affects their ability to be able to concentrate and clear the pests from the ground. So a lot of breeding happened in Ethiopia for the entire part of 2020, and the same situation happened in Somalia. So what we are suffering now as Kenya, we are suffering the fate of actually our neighbors who just didn't do a good job for one reason or the other, probably, which was beyond the team that was working there. So we had predicted that because of what was happening in those countries, if winds start now blowing towards Kenya again, the northerly winds, then we'll definitely be able to get a second wave of locust. And this is exactly what happened. And the FAO's prediction then was that sometimes by late December, but unfortunately, because desert locust is a weather issue, so long as winds started blowing towards us, we were experiencing invasion as early as 7th of November. Mandera already had swarms going forward.
So, do I hear you to, first of all, thank you very much for being on the show, but do I hear you to say that this discussion around climate change is the same discussion that one would have when one is talking about the desert locust infestation into this country?
Yeah, yes and no. First, desert locust invasion has been there since time immemorial, even in the biblical times. So if you look at it from that angle, then maybe you want to be a little bit cautious before you really put it onto the weather change or climate change or something like that. But then you look at the other part of it, which is, take for example, this time, last year when we got the invasion in Kenya, why did we have locusts in our fields for a very long time? This is because we kind of saw very intense kind of rainfall in the fields, in the areas of northeastern, where normally you'll have very dry areas. There would be nothing lush there for locusts to feed on, so they wouldn't be able to survive there for long. But for last year, you got some very intense rainfall in those areas which are traditionally dry, and you got so much of fodder which now locusts were able to feed on. They were able to breed, and they were able to give to first generation, second generation, and sometimes even to third generation. So it is something that is both, a yes and no answer if you look at it. Remember, why we got the upsurge in the Southern Asian territory there around Saudi Arabia. There's a place there, we call it the empty quarter. For better part of 2017, 2018, climate issue here, because this area was hit by almost 3 successive cyclones. Now, this really is what made locusts, because locusts would traditionally be there, but in a very small quantity. They don't go beyond because there's normally nothing that promotes a lot of their growth. But then we had this successive cyclone that gave vegetation there, and desert locust is one such adaptive insect, maybe one of the best in the world, actually, if you look at all the insects of foliage. So they would breed very fast. They can they go through only 3 life stages, not 4 like other insects will do. So if you give it 3 months, you would have 20 times what you got from the first time. If you give it another 3 months, you will have 500 times. And I'm talking of billions of locusts here, so it's not just one. So this is really what happened there. So that was also a weather issue. And then when now they overblow, the wind starts bringing them down south. They come to the Horn of Africa. They also went to part of Asia. Even in Pakistan, we're fighting locusts, and FAO is supporting. So many other countries are affected in the region.
So how is this being fought? How is this being fought now? Because, I mean, it is clear that it's in terms of what it's doing, devastating vegetation, devastating livelihoods in the country. How is this being fought?
Yeah, good question. So what is happening now with FAO? We have the technical expertise, we have the money, and we are supporting the government to control desert locusts. So what we have done, specifically for Kenya, for example, we've divided our fields into 6 bases, what we call bases of operation. We have a base which we have set up in Mandera, we have a base in Wajir, we have a base in Garissa, we have a base in Isiolo, which covers the central part of Samburu, Baringo, and then we have a base up in Marsabit, and we have a base in Turkana. And then down on the lower central eastern here, we have a base in Masinga. Now, these bases, we got assets there. We have aircraft that we do use to spray. We also have ground teams that would also be able to do the control on the hoppers when they are still not flying. So we have this type of machinery. We now have a very good space because we have pesticides in the country. It's unlike last year when we didn't have them, and then COVID pandemic really also hampered our situation. So now we are in good space when it comes to pesticides in Kenya. We are now also in a good space because we measured so much FAO in training and building capacity of the country to be able to deal with it. So, for instance, if you were to go with me to Wajir, you will find the people from Wajir, the youths that we have trained very thoroughly, are the ones that are on the ground, the boots on the ground, dealing with the desert locust. Yeah, you control the desert locust in two ways. One, you have to do a lot of surveillance because you have to see where the insect is for you to be able to control it. So surveillance is key. So we got a lot of scouts. Like now in Kenya, we have about 1,200 scouts that we have trained in various counties that are affected. They do this, and we have given them the apps and the gadgets that they use. We call it eLocust 3M, and there's another one we call eLocust 3G. 3M works when you are in network. 3G will work when you are not in a network coverage area. So either way, you are covered, and you are able to send this information that we have cited a swarm of locusts in this place. It will send specific coordinates. These coordinates are processed quickly here in Nairobi. Now we have set up an office. We are supporting the ministry, Desert Locust Command Center, and again in Rome, which is the HQ FAO. And quickly information is relayed now to the control team. The control team will be the pilot, where the pesticides are, and then they will be able to set up and move inside and be able to do the spraying, if at all that's be spraying aerially, or to the ground, if at all that should be done on the boots. Let me just add that on the ground team, I must thank the government again because we innovatively took the National Youth Service, 500 strong men that were thoroughly trained on matters ground control. So these boots are on the ground. We are supporting them to be able to move and control the hoppers, especially when the locust is still not flying. So we have the manpower and the capacity to deal with it this time around.
So we don't see a situation that can be prevented, really. So what we are looking at is a situation that can be managed and controlled. You can't really prevent this, can you? Like with other things. So they have to essentially land before you can control or manage the situation.
A good question, because the desert locust is a migratory pest.
Right.
They don't need visa to cross to your border.
Exactly.
Yeah, they will come in whether you like it or not. Like actually, for Kenya, we were largely free. We were very okay, pretty that we were done with this issue, even though we knew that it may come again. But there was nothing we could do because if, take for example, your neighbor doesn't do what they're supposed to do, I mean, there will be very little that you're going to do. Like for now, this year we even experienced a very strange phenomenon because Somalia, I mean, as is, they got a number of swarms in the northern area. Those areas are a little bit peaceful, the areas of Puntland, I think part of Somaliland. And there was some kind of surveillance that FAO was able to do. So we were able to predict that these ones, if they mature and start flying, they can fly to the northern part of Kenya. So you are looking at Wajir, Garissa, and maybe Bandera. Unfortunately, a number of swarms left and went into the southern part of Somalia. And some of those areas are no-go zones because of security issues. You are aware of this. So we all of a sudden found around the 9th of November, we had swarms crossing to Lamu. We had swarms now getting into the coastal regions, Kilifi, Taita Taveta. If you heard about those around November, if you saw those type of swarms, we had a few of these swarms coming in. So we are dealing with it, but the point I'm putting is desert locust is a migratory pest. It is something that control must be approached regionally or if possible even globally. And this is what actually FAO is trying to do. That's why we are putting together this whole management this time around as the whole of Africa affair. because whether you do good in your country, if your neighbor, like last year, it is really praised that what we did in Kenya, we actually stopped locusts from going to West Africa in the Sahel region, because it was so predicted that if we didn't control desert locusts in Turkana,
Yeah.
and they started fledging and flying from Turkana, they would find themselves into southern Sudan, part of the west of Sudan, and this would go to the West Africa Sahel region. And they were actually already prepared. But what we did here, we totally stopped that, and that did not happen. And Kenya was really praised for that.
That word, Hamisi, prepared. The first time when the FAO and the other organizations issued that alert that, we are witnessing the possibility of desert locusts crossing into the country, would you say that Kenya was adequately prepared for the first wave in 2019?
Yes, I would say Kenya was actually prepared, because what probably you may want to understand is, as FAO, we work very closely with the government. So when we issued the alert, we were also issuing it to the government. We were working very closely with the ministry, and immediately the first swarms crossed here, we were able to even first capture, including the date when it crossed here. That tells you there was some level of preparedness. The only gap that you got that time, Eric, was desert locust was being seen in Kenya after a lull of 70 years. I mean, if you go to my village, I found somebody whose name is Locust in my language, and she's 76 years old. So I was asking her, why were you called this? Told me this is the time when Locust was here. And that's a true story, actually. It's recorded.
Wow.
So you can be sure in 2019, 2020, Kenya didn't have any capacity to deal with desert locusts, because this was not our common thing.
Yeah.
You went into the shelves to look for the pesticides to use, and you found they didn't stock it, because nobody would keep pesticides that would not be bought for 70 years.
Sure.
And yet you need specifics to be able to deal with desert locusts.
Okay.
And immediately after that, if you just allow me 1 minute, when we now started working and supporting the government in FAO, we even started tendering for some of the pesticides from the headquarters in Rome so that we get them worldwide. Then COVID-19 happened, and there was lockdown all over. So this really hampered our ability and the government's ability to be able to deal with locusts for maybe between January, February, and up around March. We were actually starting to get a breakthrough, get supplies coming in, training quite a number of now people on the ground, and for aerial training. And we had even to get some experts here in the country, because we really didn't have this capacity that time. So as FAO, we supported with these experts. But I'm glad to say that now Kenya has this capacity, and we are able to deal with this from within the country.
So what happens to the vegetation? I mean, I'm thinking about farmers. I'm thinking about those who lost their crop because of the rapid manner in which these locusts would basically come in and ravage, right? In terms of returning to, or at least starting again, how can they be guaranteed that they can, begin the whole process of planting and going into harvesting if the locust problem is still there? I mean, I can understand what you've said about managing it, but now these folks have to start again, isn't it?
Good point. Good point there. So when you are controlling desert locust, you have to look at, you have to be responsible. And as the FAO, this is what we say. So you have to control locusts in 3 stages. Stage 1, you want to just deal with surveillance. Where is the locust? Mark them, train people, create awareness for the communities, tell them we have this locust. Take, for example, you're going to do a control in an area, you got to tell these guys, I'm coming to control. If you see some aircraft over here, please don't stay there. These are pesticides, and you do that. Stage 2, do the actual control. But then stage 3, you must do an impact assessment, and you must use that to be able to address the issue of livelihoods, those that were lost, or you have to recover or protect whatever is left there. So like for last year, we did, together with the government, Ministry of Agriculture, we commissioned an independent entity that did an impact assessment, and the report was given. And as FAO and government, we've used this particular report. I can speak for FAO. and used it to be able to support communities that were affected on matters livelihoods. We actually just finished a project in Samburu, Isiolo, Garissa, and Marsabit, 4 counties, which was dealing with the unconditional cash transfer, where we were giving some of those households that were affected, some startup monies which they could use.
Okay.
We have also done a lot of distribution of seeds in these counties, a lot of it, tons of it in the counties, so that these farmers could get what to plant. We have also distributed a lot of fertilizer. And we've gone beyond that now. We are also even training these farmers on how to recover quickly from the menace. So this is the livelihood part of it, and it is huge in part of what we are doing when we are controlling locusts. So we are not just controlling locusts and leaving the fields. And Mark, you just forgot, it's not just the crops, it's also livestock.
Right.
And, in those areas they do a lot of livestock actually. They are more pastoralists than crop farmers. So you find locusts compete with their livestock on this on forage, and this will also affect them, their ability to be able to get more from their livestock. Sure. And so our efforts on livelihood recoveries and protection also cover a lot of livestock related activities.
Just as we conclude this, Hamisi, if you look at all these mitigation measures that you've put in place, what degree of confidence do you have that this would be able to address the risk of food security that we are facing with the invasion of desert locusts?
Well, the risk is still there, and you can only do so much. So what probably would be critical is for the government to also look ahead. We are doing this, we are supporting the livelihoods, everything, but basically probably we can't get you exactly where you are. So we might have to find other activities, other programs, the projects that should be able to still come in and cushion. The good news is that when locust came first, when it arrived around December, this is a short rain period. And sometimes those who do crops, it will find when crops are already mature in the fields. And these are not really very exposed for locusts to destroy, I can say that. What now the plan we are trying to do with the ministry, and we did a very nice plan of action together, which was launched by the minister and the FAO, is that for this year we want to try and control whatever is in our fields before March, because that's when you start the long rain season.
Yeah.
What you want to do is not to find this pest in our fields when our long rain crops would be in the field, because that will be disaster. Desert locusts can eat everything you have and leave you with nothing in terms of vegetation. It's a bad thing. It's not a joke. So we want to try that, and to do that, Eric, we have the assets that should be very adequate now in the field, stationed very properly in all the affected counties. I can tell you for now already we've got so many swarms coming in. Actually, we're talking of about 134 swarms that have come in. Because of the winds, a number have come in from Ethiopia and went back. They just oscillate with the wind. So for now, we are still monitoring those borders, the areas of Moyale, around there. But we steadily have about 34 that really came in and have really invaded us. A few of them, about 5, were huge swarms. I'm sure you are in the studio. You've never seen a swarm. One time I'll take you to the field. You'll see it, and you will see a cloud of.
How many billions in a swarm?
Yeah, we could have as many as 5, 20, 30 million in a swarm. But what we use most is the kilo. We measure the area, because one of the biggest, like last year, we had a 40 kilometer by 60 kilometer swarm in Kenya. One of the biggest that you can have. Just imagine that.
That's
a cloud big. Of that moving, it makes the whole thing. So the point is, we have stationed assets, and our teams are working even today in the morning. So out of the swarms that already were here in Kenya, we've done almost 70 to 80%. We've treated them. So when they come in, we treat them. We don't want to allow them to get in.
Okay.
And seems like for now, Kenya will be the battlefield because maybe our neighbors still have their issues. So they're probably not doing what they're supposed to do. So we're prepared to deal with what they are sending our way.
So you got your job cut out for you. Thank you very much, Hamisi. Hamisi Williams is the Deputy Country Representative for the UN Food and Agriculture Organization in charge of programs. He's been telling us what they've been doing to address the desert locust infestation in the country. Asante sana for speaking to us, and we wish you a great day, Hamisi.
You too. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is just one of many talks that we'll be having. We've decided we're going to be having talks about agriculture, about food security in the country, calling it Agri-Talk. And for more on this and other conversations on Agri-Talk as well, when you're listening to Spice FM, you can also tune into KTN's Farmers TV every day between 4 and 5 p.m. with Philip Keitani, having more on Agri-Talk.